So quickly, tree removal. I didn't do the list yet, but I attended a meeting today of the Tree Advisory Committee, and they are staffed by Tom Cullen, who's the DPW director, and is also in charge of, he's the tree warden as well. So he's been working with this committee. What they would like to do and what he would like to do is kind of join forces to develop a street tree planting program for those trees to replace the trees that basically get removed.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to tap in a little bit with them, particularly relative to scenic roads. So in any case, it was a pretty interesting meeting. The bulk of the people are members of the garden club, and but Tom wants to try to get some money in his budget for tree replacement. He gets about $2,000 a year now, but you know, there's probably grants out there. There's garden club. There's and then also, Tom's advocating for a little more money in the capital budget so that he can have some wiggle room. So in any case, apparently what past practice has been when a tree has been deemed as an emergency, the DPW director notified this board, particularly if it was on a scenic road, within 24 hours or 48 hours of the tree, of the issue of the tree. But in other situations, there have been hearings where the planning board has heard like 8 or 10 or 12 trees at a time.
Oh, stop. No. I wrote you an email on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we talking about trees in scenic road right-of-ways?
Right. Okay.
The process has been that a list of trees to be removed is put together. The list is given to the planning board. The planning board looks at the list. We assign planning board members to actually drive and look at the trees proposed to be removed. We hold a hearing, typically either with the DPW director or the tree warden.
Yeah.
They're not the same person.
Right.
And we approve each and every tree.
Right.
That's what we typically do. About 3 years ago, the previous DPW director encountered some situations where doing that would have been a dangerous situation because there were some trees that didn't appear on the list that needed to be taken out right away. And so we set up an alternative process, but only for very limited numbers of trees where there was an imminent danger that the tree or limbs, major limbs from that tree would come down. And in that case, the DPW director notified the planner and the chairman with photographs and the location of the tree. And then there was an administrative decision made whether the planner and chairman agreed with that determination. And if that was the case, then it didn't have to come to the full board.
Okay.
But that's only happened twice in the last 3 years.
Okay.
So that's the process.
Yeah. Apparently, with the new DPW director, he is viewing that he's making the call on kind of more emergency trees.
Well, I haven't heard of any of them.
He has submitted about half a dozen trees to me over the last week
That were imminent.
that are dead.
Right,
Well,
but not causing danger.
Why I actually sent you an email on this.
No, I understand that.
But I'm not in the communications loop on it, or what's the problem?
Well, I had asked him in future to include you, and I hadn't had a chance to get this half dozen or so to you.
Yeah.
But
so what's happened to them?
I think some of them are waiting to come down. I basically emailed him and said that I would, which I think I included you on, which basically said the planning board can hold a hearing on these. So, my understanding is that Tom would prefer just to call them dead trees and remove them.
No,
So, I understand.
but he needs a
But-
permit for that.
Right.
So, what I would suggest they do is come in here and talk to us, because
Okay.
that's just not gonna fly. We're not gonna give the trees on scenic roads, the DPW director, open season to take down whichever
Right.
ones he thinks he
Right.
needs to.
Right.
I mean, that's just not gonna happen.
Right.
Period. End of discussion. So if he has a problem with that, he can come in
Okay.
and I'll be glad to tell him to his face.
I think it'd be good to have a definition of what emergency means, like
Well,
it's broken and fought, right, you know.
That's the reason for
overhanging
the
something.
double, for having
That's-
two sets of other eyes on the tree and a written authorization. It had to be a written request, photographed for the record, with a written
Right,
authorization to
right.
do it. This is a scenic road bylaw.
Yeah.
You know, the guy can't just ignore it and blow it off.
I sent Tom the first week I was here. Basically, he goes by the public shade tree law.
This is the
which
scenic road
I understand
bylaw.
that, but then you've also got a public shade tree law, which requires a public hearing by the tree warden for tree removal. And the tree's supposed to be posted. So, Mass General Law, Chapter 87, basically is the public shade tree law. And it's really ambiguous on a bunch of issues, and it has,
We signed up.
yeah,
We signed.
you're all taken care
They're all
of.
taken
Jim.
care of.
Done?
They're signed.
Oh, thank you, Alan.
So, I can give you the Mylars to take to the registry,
Okay.
and you will need to sign these forms as well.
Okay.
So, you will need to return those forms to
To
me.
you.
Yeah,
This is it?
yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
In any case, there's a whole process for that, and Mass General Law is the enabling legislation which encourages communities to adopt their own regulations, because Mass General Law is not clear on a number of the details. So basically, what I suggested that he do is look at these, a bylaw that I got involved with for adoption in Winchester for public shade trees, which is much clearer. And it also, one of the big factors is it allows the tree warden to hold a hearing in the event that a utility wants to come in and cut. So if by adoption of a local tree bylaw, it gives the tree warden a lot more power.
I don't want to give the tree warden a lot more power.
Well, you do when it comes to utilities.
Well, maybe so, but when we're talking about scenic roads, I'd like for the review
Okay.
authority to remain with the planning board, and period. Now, if
Okay.
it's not a scenic road, it doesn't matter to me, but
Okay.
but it's a system that's worked for the last
Okay.
17 years. It works very well.
Okay.
And that's what I would prefer that we keep doing.
Okay.
And that's.
So I will send him an email and stating that if this is the policy, and if he needs to do anything to, likewise, he needs to come to the planning
He
board
needs a
first.
permit from us,
Right.
for sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Don't you usually advertise them all?
Yeah.
The addresses, and then all these people come in from the neighborhood and talk about them.
That's right. But we have a lot of public comment on taking these trees down. A lot of people disagree with the tree warden that a particular tree needs to come down. It gives them a forum for comment, and they use that forum. And for the guy to have carte blanche to take down whichever tree he thinks he wants, because he determines by himself that the tree needs to come down, it's just not, on the scenic road, it's not gonna fly.